Man, this guy is the real deal. I like the fact that he literally, when he answers a question, he shows you. He doesn't talk theory like me.
And I have some...
Is he... Oh my gosh, is he gonna make a fire in the studio? Man, this is like dad on steroids, isn't it? Like, you know, when your dad tells you how to do something and then it shows you, oh, yeah, let's pin this picture on the wall, but let's do it the right way. Well, this guy, he is awesome. Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and YouTube has been pestering me with a specific video recommendation, aka the Survivalist answers survival questions from Twitter, posted 6 months ago on the channel Wired. Now, Wired, oh my gosh, this channel, like literally, they had some really horrible experts that were pushing politics the entire time, even though they were supposed to talk about history. And then they had the Egyptologist that I liked a lot. Where is she? Where the heck did she go? Oh, there she is. There we go. So why did Egypt fall? She was great. Like, this video was fantastic. She was like straight to the point, unbiased, professional. Loved it. Now, that is why I haven't got a clue what to expect from this video, but let me tell you, the guy looks awesome. Like, I don't know. This is a 24 minutes and 31 seconds video. Maybe he will answer the question, well, igloo, how the heck do you read it, is made of ice, how does it keep you warm? And then he'll speak for 1 minute and 31 about igloos, and then after that it's gonna be like straight on politics. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but maybe not. And once again, guy looks awesome. So let's check it out.
I'm Donnie Dust, survivalist and primitive skills expert. I'm here today to answer your questions from the internet. This is Survivalist Support.
Oh my gosh, primitive survival expert. This guy's incredible. Donnie Dust. Double D.
Question number 1. CDN Pooh Bear. Why do survivalists say to drink your urine if lost in the wild? No thanks. You're absolutely right. No thanks. Do not drink your urine. It is a waste output. It is the waste from your body. The last thing you want to do is drink your urine. It is a bad idea to do. Next question.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, I'm no survivalist, of course, but I imagine that would be literally a last resort, like, situation. Like, it's not something that you would do if you can man it up, if you will, or maybe wait for rescue before you try that. I imagine that's something you would do only if, like, you're literally dying of thirst. I think. I don't know.
Question is from A Survivalists. How do you navigate without a compass or GPS?
So if he's a survivalist, the person writing the question, how is he a survivalist if he doesn't know that?
There are a number of ways that you can apply some natural navigation. Anytime we see a crescent moon, just like the tattoo on my hand is a crescent, when you're in the northern hemisphere, and you see a crescent moon in the sky, if you follow tip to tip all the way down to the horizon, that is a cardinal direction of south. When you see puddles will typically dry from a southern edge to a northern edge because the sun moves through the sky in a certain direction. If you see snow on certain mountain edges, well, snow likes to be protected. Typically, snow will last longer on a northern side compared to a southern side.
Okay, this is fascinating. You know, of course, once again, I can't really fact check him on anything he says, so do keep in mind that I am no expert whatsoever when it comes to survival skills, but I am interested to know, like, let's say that everything he said checks out, and I mean, the guy looks the part and sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I imagine he has a lot of direct experience. Let's say that everything checks out. Wouldn't it be fascinating to find out when humans actually figured these things out? Because, of course, today we have tech, which in a way helps us a lot. It also makes us dependent on it. Whereas, you know, survival, people that were surviving in like the Bronze Age, in the Stone Age, in the freaking Mesolithic period, all the way even up to the Iron Age, they would develop skills that were practical, real, and they didn't rely as much as we do on tech. They had their own technology, of course. I mean, Iron Age technology, Bronze Age technology, even Stone Age, you can call it technology with all the flint knapping and all of that, but still, it's a fascinating thing. So listening to someone who has actual direct experience and experiential knowledge, it's fantastic for me.
We've all heard the saying about moss only grows on the north side of a tree.
Never heard it.
Well, Moss will grow 360 degrees around a tree, but dry moss will typically die out first compared to a wet moss. And the dry moss is drier because it's getting hit by the sun. Even looking at trees, all tree branches will have a natural bend towards the sun. That can be a cardinal direction. So if you take multiple natural signs and indicators of a direction, compile them together, that can give you a cardinal direction when you don't have a map or a GPS.
That is incredible. Basically, you're taking nature's sensory cues and the way it reacts to certain exposure, to elements, to sunlight, and use that to navigate the environment that would be otherwise. This is incredible. So you know what I just noticed? The guy looks like he's straight out of a Valheim game, but with good textures. That's great. He's a Valheim guy.
From @Life, Math, and Money. What does it mean to die by exposure? When you die from exposure, it means simply that the elements are going to kill you. That could be sun, that could be cold weather, that could be rain, it could be anything that's out in that natural environment in the form of weather. When you don't have a shelter or the proper clothing, you are essentially exposed to it. Whether it's your bare skin or improper footwear or even maybe a beanie not covering your head. Exposure will kill you fast. Question from Reddit. Is it possible to make a knife out of wilderness materials?
Oh, yeah.
You can definitely make a
Absolutely.
knife out of wilderness material. The easiest way to make a knife out of wilderness material is a process called flint napping or lithic reduction. What it requires is a piece of stone that is high in silicate, and when it breaks similar to glass. It
I have a dedicated video, link in the description.
has a waxy, glassy, smooth, and featureless sort of interior. Not all stones are the same. This right here is a granite cobble. This here is a piece of chert. It has a high silicate rate, and when I strike it with the cobble, it's going to create essentially a razor blade flake that I can use to process all manner of game, cut fibers, cut notches in fireboards. I'm going to support my stone
And deal with the men from the rival tribe.
underneath. A few little taps.
Boom.
And that right there is your knife. This edge is razor sharp. It can cut just about anything. So even cutting a piece of bark tan leather,
Look at that.
it's razor sharp. When you hear it,
Man, this guy's the real deal.
it's got a little ting. The reason why this works so well is that it breaks in a conchoidal fracture. So if you ever shot in a BB at a windshield, it creates a perfect 90-degree cone. And with every strike,
Boom.
I can impact and, more importantly, create
That could be an arrowhead if he works a little bit on the what is going to be the flat side, so the side that goes connected to the shaft. Then yeah, that could be a great arrowhead with one strike. Work it a little bit around, maybe make it serrated a little bit. Fantastic.
the blade that I want. If I hit it harder, I get a bigger flake. If I hit it softer, I get a smaller flake. I can then take this small flake, turn it into a projectile point to hunt game.
I told you. Or shoot at the rival tribe.
I can take this bigger flake and turn it into a stone knife
Look
that I
at
can use
that.
for any number of tasks when I'm out in the bush.
Yeah, you see how he worked a little bit all around to make it serrated. Once again, stone is a massively broad term. It's an umbrella term, of course. And one thing will be the sort of stones that were used, for example, in Mesoamerican civilizations. Just to give you an example. But then again, as I was saying, one of the problems is the fact that every time you strike, particularly when you encounter bone, or if you encounter another stone, it breaks, it chips away with every strike, or not necessarily every strike, it kind of depends what sort of resistance it encounters. But yes, the durability is one of the problems, because its ability to cut, he just demonstrated it, and it was incredible, wasn't it? But due to the fact that it is, as he says, similar to glass, it also has this sort of problem that we usually associate with glass, which is the fact that it's brittle. This is in fact something that even medieval craftsmen had to deal with when they were including too much carbon into their steel, because it went into too high of a carbon state, which made it brittle. So that wasn't great for armor. It does happen, by the way, because they were experimenting, but usually a medium carbon steel is the best for armor, because then you can heat treat it and whatnot. If you go too low with your carbon in your steel, then you can't heat treat it, and if it's too high, it might get brittle.
Next question, Sherry C. How does one keep good dental hygiene as a survivalist or primitive survivalist? What I do when I'm out in the bush is I use something called willow. Willow is a plant that typically grows near water. You can take any section of willow at any diameter, And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to peel the bark off. Don't throw away this bark because this can also be used as aspirin in case you get a headache
Really?
or you're not feeling so hot. Peel the bark off like a banana, pop it in your mouth, and you chew it with your molars.
Huh.
You're twisting.
Look, I mean, his teeth are clearly the teeth of an American because, I mean, he must have had dental work. I know Americans do it a lot more than other people, but it's, his teeth are perfect, pearly white. So I don't think that he achieved that with this alone. But if he spent a lot of time during the year as a survivalist in the woods, well, he managed to maintain it and then I imagine still go to the local dentist. But yeah, impressive.
Rotating, and ultimately you'll create a little paintbrush of fibers.
Huh.
Take those fibers, start scrubbing your teeth. I never bring a toothbrush with me when I know I have willow. Never had a cavity. This question is from On the Gorge. Can you start a campfire without matches or a lighter?
On the cavity thing, I'd like to say it's also genetic. The fact that he never had a cavity, I don't know, he said it as a joke, but it might also have to do with that. And once again, I do not believe that this man never went to a dentist. Of course, that's not what he said. But I like him so far very much. And I like the fact that he literally, when he answers a question, he shows you. He doesn't talk theory like me. He actually shows you that's how you do it. Boom.
How do you do it? One of the more scientific, or what I like to call high-tech ways, is something called a ferrocerium rod. A ferrocerium rod is a synthetic made rod. It's man-made. You can't find it naturally in the environment. They can reach an excess of around 5,500 degrees. And most fires, like a tinder bundle or even a small little ember, is between 6 and 800 degrees. Another option is through friction. That's my personal favorite. You can use something like a bow drill or a hand drill. And that is where you are using the friction between two different types of wood to create enough heat, more importantly, enough dust that has been drilled out from one of the spindles to create a small little ember that you drop into a tinder bundle, blow it into flame, and you got a fire. So I'm going to use this rock as a little platform. And I have some...
Is he gonna... Oh my gosh, is he gonna make a fire in the studio? I mean, the background looks solid though. I don't know if that's a green screen or if he literally brought with him half his hut, but I love it. I love it. But I can already imagine like the wired employees, the cameraman and whatnot, microphone and sound people getting a little uncomfortable now.
Juniper bark. Let me use as a tinder, and I'm going to rub it between my hands. This is a fibrous bark. What I want to do is I want to create a little bird's nest. I want to try and open these fibers up as much as possible to give them a little bit more surface area. So I wash it over my rock. You can kind of see bark just gently breaking up. I'm going to put that right on top of my rock like this.
Man, this is like dad on steroids, isn't it? Like, you know, when your dad tells you how to do something and then it shows you, oh, yeah, let's pin this picture on the wall, but let's do it the right way. Well, this
ferro rod and the striker. On my striker, I have a little lip, and it's going to allow me to throw sparks into my tinder bundle. I'm going to take my ferro rod, place
I imagine people in the Stone Age would have done this with stone, of course.
it into my tinder bundle.
Whoa.
And I'm going to create my fire.
Literally, this guy has a success rate of 100%. Everything he does works well. He is awesome. I will repeat this. My type of guy. Really, really fun. I would love to spend some time and learn from him.
Let it eat the fuel. Let it eat the tinder. This is where I would add all my wood, and I've got a fire. So the last form of fire is fire by friction. Specifically, a bow drill. This is a bow.
Yeah, not a green screen. Although then again, when it comes to the metal shelves on the right, I would have covered that a little bit with another one of these animal skins, to be honest. But apart from that, this is incredible.
Piece of cordage, a spindle, and a hearth board.
Spindle.
And last, I'm going to have a bearing block, which is a rock with a small little divot to give me downward pressure. I'm going to combine all of these elements together by taking my spindle, putting it between my cordage, and putting my bearing block right on the top.
Wow.
Start bowing until...
Look at that.
I get enough heat, rotation, and black dust to create a small ember. Take this coal, drop it in your tinder bundle, blow it into flame, and you've got a fire.
Yeah, don't forget your spindle. I swear, this is probably like my favorite episode out of Wired videos. Not that there are that many I like.
This is from Ray Klein. You know, beaver fever is a real thing. My dad. Beaver fever is definitely a real thing. The beaver fever is kind of a slang term or kind of a code term for you getting infected by some sort of waterborne pathogen. Giardia, cryptosporidium, and even hepatitis can be found in some sort of natural waters. This is from Joe Patrick, 85. What should you do if a grizzly bear attacks?
Yeah, run.
If you do find yourself being attacked, the best thing to do is curl up in a ball, protect the back of your
I understand. So not run. Don't do what I say. Do what this man says.
head and your neck, because that is the kill spot for a grizzly bear. That's where it's going to try and take out its prey by snapping that neck, suffocating it, just doing all sorts of damage to whatever portion of your body is exposed. However, it's more about the prevention of a grizzly bear attacking. Understand what's going on in that natural environment. Is it a calving season? Are the fish running? Is it the time right before these bears are getting ready to den up and they're very hungry and they're kind of aggressive? Understand that environment and the factors that could attribute to a grizzly bear attack, and ultimately you can reduce it. If there is a chance that a bear is running at you and he's coming full steam ahead, most bear attacks are something called bluff charges. They're looking to scare you off or looking to scare you out of an area. It doesn't mean they're going to come full force and start taking you down and tearing you to pieces. They're just bluffing, but that bluff can be very, very close. The best thing that you can do to let those animals know you're in the environment is to be loud, to be kind of in their vision, if you will. And their first vision is really smell. So if they can smell you coming, they can hear you coming, they're ultimately going to kind of flee that area. Bear spray is an option. Carrying some bells around your dog's neck or even around your own wrists or ankles will give just enough sound to let those predators know that you're in the area and you really don't want to be messed with. Next.
That's fascinating. I wonder when it comes to the stopping power of firearms, because he spoke about, of course, the bear spray, I think he called it, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, if you can avoid injuring or killing an animal for no reason, then I think that's great. At the end of the day, though, if let's imagine that, I don't know, I don't have the bear spray, or it's gone, or it didn't work, or it's just whatever, and I have a firearm. How effective would firearms be at stopping a grizzly bear? Because already when you watch those like cop episodes when people get shot multiple times, but because they're not shot in the heart or the head, they don't stop. You can wound their stomach, you can wound their arms, you can wound their chest some points, and they may still have enough strength, energy, and adrenaline to get to you. And if that happens with a bear, of course, you know, I would be really interested, now clearly some of these people that resist and take more shots to be stopped may have to do with substances in their blood, clearly. But then again, I think sometimes we overestimate the stopping power of some firearms over others because of the fact that in games and movies, usually one shot and drop. But the reality of fact is, particularly in a situation of a real attack and life or death scenario, combat scenario, adrenaline does really, really work. And unless you hit in a really critical area of the body, the attacker will not stop, which is why oftentimes cops have to shoot multiple times. I wonder how that would work. Like, is that like a 10 times fold with a grizzly bear? Like, what should I do? Should I try and... Because usually I would always say center and mass, shoot center and mass, but with a bear, how many times do I need to shoot that center and mass to stop it? So that would be interesting to know. Of course, maybe I have a shotgun. That could be different.
Question. Why are there so many types of knots?
Yeah.
There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of knots. But I will say this. There's only really kind of, in my mind, 4 categories of knots. It's an end of the rope knot, a middle of the rope knot, an anchor knot, and then a knot that would join 2 ropes together. An end of the rope knot can also serve as an anchor knot. Something like a bow line allows me to take a piece of material, the rope, and create a knot at the end that can be used for any number of things. Whether I got to hook some sort of carabiner on here, throw this over a tree, and then lower a bag of food to protect myself from bears. But this right here is a knot that goes at the end of my rope. More importantly, this is something I could use to rappel out of a helo or rappel off the side of a cliff. A middle of the rope knot is where I need to put a knot in the middle of the rope. Even doing something like a butterfly or an alpine hitch allows me to take my knot and put it in the middle. I could have somebody tied off to this side, somebody clipped in here, and somebody trailing off to this side. The last knot, when I'm going to connect 2 pieces of cordage together, something like a square knot, allows me to take 2 ends and know that I can secure those two ends together and take a shortened length of rope and extend it out by connecting two ends together. Next,
Fascinating stuff. Man, I'm learning a lot today. Next thing you know, Metatron in a forest. I'm gonna bring my Roman armor though.
Next question is from Vin. What's the most nutritious insect? The most nutritious insect is the one that catches a fish. If you are finding insects that can ultimately catch a fish or catch something else, that's going to lead to a bigger, better meal, more calories, more fat. I would go there. But if I have to eat some insects, and if you do have to eat some insects, I do think you suck at your job. That's just my personal opinion. But I would definitely go with either grasshoppers or crickets. Because they are relatively easy to catch, they're pretty good to eat. They're not the worst thing. Skewer it up, squeeze the guts out, roast it over fire, ensure you kill all the parasites, whatever could be growing on that inside, pop it in your mouth, and it tastes like popcorn covered in insects.
Oh no, and the fact that he says it like that makes me feel like he tried it. Not for need, because he clearly, or maybe when he just started, who knows, or just maybe just tried it. He does strike to me as the guy who would literally try something just to know. So, oh goodness gracious. No, thank you.
Next question is from Unstable Employee. Does anyone know the best way to sharpen a machete? There's a lot of different ways you can sharpen a machete, and it's very similar to sharpening a knife. My time in the jungles in Central America and in the Amazon, my favorite thing to use was a rotten log with a handful of sand, and I'd run that machete right back and forth across it, creating a new edge, allowing me to chop. Next,
I thought he was going to say a stone, like with water, but I imagine he's just trying to discuss situation when you don't have the regular stuff that you would use, and then how are you going to make do?
This question is from Brett Patrick. What are your top 4 essential survivalist
Oh, good.
tools
Yeah, I
and
like
your
it.
weapons?
Good,
My
Brett.
core 4 things that I always bring out with me are what I call the core 4. That is a blade of some sort, a barrier, a bottle, and an aspect of a burn or a fire making tool. When we think of a blade, that can come in the form of a stone blade, it can come in the form of a steel blade, or it can even come in the form of an axe. Some sort of tool that allows you to process, allows you to cut, it allows you to take large material and break it down. When I think of a barrier, that could be a tarp, it could be a blanket, it could be a sleeping bag, something that gives you a barrier from the natural environment, something that's just going to enable you to stay warmer or stay shaded if necessary. A bottle. Now it sounds kind of crazy, but I'm talking about a single-walled steel water bottle, something that allows me to boil water in it, more importantly carry water, because water is not going to be everywhere. So when I find a spot with water, I want to boil it out, and I want to be able to bring it with me if I have to leave a place. And then
Okay, so the idea of boiling water then is not a myth, because that's something that I was looking forward to see, because of course I've always heard, and I think we've all done, particularly when I was growing up, that, you know, from a survival perspective, you don't want to just go straight ahead and drink water from a river or from a lake because it may contain bacteria and whatnot, and so boiling is a good way to take care of that and sort of sanitize it. But I didn't know if that was real, because I didn't actually. These days, what you hear on the internet, what you hear on TV, you're gonna question everything, because a lot of people speak without knowing, which is why I kind of wanted to create the little disclaimer at the beginning of this video where I said I'm not an expert, so I haven't got a clue. But I like that he is mentioning boiling the water, which kind of suggests to me that then there is some truth to the concept of boiling water to make it safe for drinking. And of course, I don't know if that would work on any water. I would still not drink the water from a swamp even if I'm boiling it, unless I'm completely desperate, I suppose. But yeah, fascinating stuff.
And fire, your burn, that is ultimately something that's going to give you an advantage when it comes to making a fire. That could be the form of a ferro rod or a good tinder bundle, a lighter, a tin full of matches, but something that's going to allow you to make fire, because fire, if you're not experienced with making fire in the bush, can be very difficult. So give yourself that advantage, have a tool to make that fire, and you'll be good with those core 4.
I would pay money to watch him play Valheim. I would.
This is from Question Answers. Is the water in a wilderness lake
There you go.
drinkable or
Let's
not?
go. Let's go.
Yes, all water in lakes, streams, rivers, and ponds are drinkable. However, you need to purify that water. And I'm not talking about filtering. There's a difference between filtering water and purifying water. When you filter water, you're going to remove the particulates, the grasses, the leaves, a little bit of dirt and debris. When you purify the water, you're ultimately killing all of the bacteria, any of the little nasty things that could be living in that water. The easiest way to do this is boiling water. If you don't have the means of boiling water, a filter is a great option. A filter, That is a commercial grade filter that will remove not only the particulates, but the Giardia, the Cryptosporidium, the beaver fever, if you will. It's going to remove all of those pathogens from the water, making it safe to drink.
Fantastic.
Next question from Dat Hutch Touch 9. How would you guys go about washing/cleaning your clothes in the wild? Anytime
school.
I catch fish or process any game, I always wash my clothes. I don't want that smell. I don't want that oil. I don't want that fat on my clothes. It's going to attract bears, all sorts of little vermin. You want to avoid that. Strip yourself down, find a stream, grab a handful of sand or a coarse rock, and work it into that clothing fiber. You're looking to exfoliate all of that kind of saturated stuff that's on the clothing. Scrub it out, wash, rinse, repeat. Do that 2 or 3 times. Air dry them out. You'll definitely be good to go. But if you do want something that has a little bit more of like antibacterial fighting or something that's more soapy, there are plants, something like a yucca or something like a sage that you can incorporate into that wash and get them a little bit cleaner, smelling a little bit fresher. Take that yucca root, smash it up. It's going to have a lot of saponins in it, and it's going to be kind of a sudsy material. Sage, stick it in your pockets, wash it with that sand, that coarse rock in a stream, and you're going to make your clothes a little bit fresher.
You know, if something happens, I don't know what sort of weapons World War III will be fought with, but I know that World War IV will be fought with stones and sticks. There's this interesting quote. Well, this guy is going to be okay. Like this guy, no matter what happens, it's like, oh my gosh, there was a detonation or what have you, and now, you know, supermarkets are being looted. There's nothing. Well, this guy is fine. That's why I always respect preppers. You know how people make fun of those types that are like, no, I want to have 6 months or a year of food, and I want to know how to do stuff. And it's stupid to make fun of them because you never know. And, you know, it's good to learn skills. It's good to learn skills because you can try and make as much money as you want, but if the economy goes down then and money's worth nothing then, which could absolutely happen, not very likely, but it can happen, then what you're going to do with your dollars? You're going to eat them? On the other hand, this guy has valuable skills that can allow him to survive. Of course, he's doing it because he finds it fun and also he's having a great time. That already, I mean, laugh at the man all you want. We all have hobbies and we all take time to do stuff that is not needed. And this guy is not only spending time doing what he loves, and which, I mean, props to you, but then again, he also is learning skills that you never know.
Next question is from Quora. How do you treat common injuries or illness in the wild? Mostly weeds, all the stuff you pick out of your yards, those are some of the most beneficial for you. Even something like stinging nettle. Stinging nettle will sting you. And what do you do with stinging nettle to get rid of that sting? You take that same leaf that stung you, roll it up in your fingers, spit in your hand, make a little spit poultice, and scrub those little needles out of your hand, and you'll ease that pain. Something as simple as dandelion root, something as simple as yarrow, all those things can kill infections, can kill bacteria inside of you. So the medicinal plants, it takes years of knowledge, a lot of experience to really get to know them. But once you do know them, there's endless opportunities. Most of the medicines that we have today typically derive from some sort of plant-based medicine.
You know what that reminds me is the fact that, of course, today we have biology centers and a medicinal understanding of the science behind all of the stuff that we take. But then again, a lot of the modern things that we take have side effects, some of which can be really, really bad. So there are situations like, and this comes from someone who unfortunately tends to suffer from headaches, and I take ibuprofen every time, and probably too much, in fact. But then again, there are medicines that we take that are so strong that really you cure something and break something else, or could potentially break something else. When it comes to the ancients, even ancient Rome or the medieval period, which we always tend to look at and be like, oh, you didn't have our modern medicine and understanding. Well, with all of our modern understanding, we still smoke, we still eat garbage. In fact, if anything, our food is much worse than the food they had. So yeah, good for you that you have that knowledge. You certainly don't use it, do you? And then when it comes to medicine, I mean, all of the plants and these things that the ancient would have known, sometimes they misunderstood some processes. Sometimes some of the remedies that they used didn't work. Maybe they had a placebo effect, but oftentimes they did. And they worked with what they had, but then again, they were very, very knowledgeable. And as you see, and that's, I think, the key difference between an ancient person and a modern person. When an ancient person is taking as certain plants, certain roots, they know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. They may not know the molecular aspects of it or at atomic level, but they do know cause and effect and cause a link. When it comes to me as a modern person, because I'm not educated in medicine, and of course doctors represent just a small percentage worldwide of the population, but the average Joe like me, or the average Metatron like me, when I take a medicine, I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. Nothing. I just know that I take that, drink it with water, don't drink it with alcohol. That's as much as I know.
Does anyone know how to catch a rabbit? How do I make a trap? How do I bait it? What to bait it with? It's very, very important to note. Primitive trapping in the United States is 100% illegal. Typically, if you're going to be doing any sort of trapping, you have to be in a no-shit survival situation. Like food is a must, and you're going through all those means to try to get some food.
I imagine it's illegal because they don't want people to create a trap and leave it for, say, game, but then they end up trapping another hunter, I suppose.
If that is the case, the best options are snares. Snares work in a variety of ways, but the most simplest of snare is a wire snare or a small piece of cordage snare. And what that is really where you identify the path that an animal travels. A path to its den, a path to water, a path to food. And what you would do is create a small snare in that path. Why? Because that's the process and the route that that animal is traveling. And a snare is essentially a small little noose that's hung off of a stick or a tree that when the animal walks through, its head is going to fit through, but its shoulders are going to be a little bit too wide, and that noose is going to shrink down onto its head as it starts to move through or as it starts to run, creating a super tight little noose around its head, and ultimately it expires. But here's the catch. If you are in a survival situation and you do have to employ some sort of snare, you have to be the first one to that animal once it's caught. Because an animal in distress, a coyote, a fox, any sort of scavenger or predator is going to key in on that sound and try and get to that animal before you do. This is from Apocalypse Outdoor. Do life straws actually work? I picked one up at the store today, and I'm a little skeptical about using it though.
I don't know what a life straw is.
Life straws are a great option. Essentially, life straw is a giant straw that allows you to put the straw directly into the water and start drinking. That straw has all the filtering mechanisms and purification mechanisms inside for you to suck up dirty water and ultimately consume safe, clean, drinkable water. This is from Surgasoft. How do you make a primitive fish trap? Primitive fish traps are a very popular way to catch fish. The reason why, it is a passive means of acquiring food. A passive means, like a fish trap, allows you to be doing something else while it's working for you. Now there's a variety of fish traps, from basket traps to fish weirs to even spring pole snares that will trigger when a fish takes the bait.
Oh yeah, I know. I've used them multiple times in Conan Exile.
Key difference is understanding what is required to set those up. Fish weirs can come from logs and stones, and that just allows the fish in a stream to kind of move into a trap and get stuck there. You come over there later, spear them, throw them out on the bank with your hands, and you've got a meal. A basket trap is more like a funnel. Going with the stream, it's going to swim into that basket trap, ultimately getting trapped. Think about the traps and how many fish that they can catch. A basket trap, maybe 2, 3, or 4. A giant fish weir, 20 or 30. And a spring pole snare designed for catching fish, maybe we'll get you one. This is,
I think one of my problems when it comes to survivalism applied to me, like if you put me in one of these scenarios, is that I really, and what I'm about to say, I will underline, I am a hypocrite when I'm saying this, but at least I know it. I love animals and I'm very empathetic towards animals, so it would be extremely difficult for me to kill an animal, whether it be a fish that I have to just let it suffocate outside the water, whether it be a deer, and that's just me. I know I'm a hypocrite because I'm not a vegetarian. I eat meat, I just eat it after it's been processed and someone else had to do the killing, so I don't see any of that. I'm sheltered from that, and all I see is the freaking hamburger. So am I a hypocrite? Absolutely. But if you put me in that scenario, I think that due to the fact that I'm extremely empathetic towards animals to the point that I'm having a difficult time killing mosquitoes. And when there is like a spider in my home, I just take them out. I don't kill them. And that is because I just put myself in their shoes and I'm like, oh, if it was me, I would hope that I would be me. So it creates like a cycle in my mind, and that would make me a horrible survivalist.
From Anson McCabe. Do you know how to survive falling through the ice? Most people quickly drown. And the reason why is your body goes into what's called a cold water shock response. As soon as your flesh touches that water, you instantly want to breathe in. You want to take a deep breath. And when you do that, you ultimately inhale water and quickly drown. People have a tendency, even if they get their feet or even close to their knees wet, they start to hyperventilate. And it causes them to breathe erratically. And in a higher elevation, it can definitely lead to quickly passing out into that icy water and drowning. If you do find yourself in water, hold your breath, come back up, grab onto that edge, create as much space as you can. Spread your body weight out and crawl across that ice until you can get to a piece of solid ground. Strip all your clothes off and try to create a fire. Take anything that's dry, maybe somebody else has some clothing, but you need to start rewarming yourself. If you have none of those things, exercise, running in place, jumping jacks, push-ups, whatever you can do to keep your body core temperature at a much higher level.
Otherwise you'll end up with hypothermia.
Next question is from Tyler Arbuckle. If an igloo is made of ice, how does it keep you warm?
How?
An igloo isn't technically made out of ice. It's made out of snow, and it's made out of kind of a specific type of snow, a highly compacted snow. More importantly, snow is mostly air if you really think about it. So essentially that snow is a great thermal layer, being that it's mostly air. Once you create that igloo shape and you crawl inside of it, your body heat will ultimately heat up that entire igloo. A lot of the igloos you see on YouTube and different survival shows aren't really the 100% authentic igloos. Most Inuit, most Nunavut, or Eskimo igloos you would come across were typically lined with animal skins, seal skins and caribou skins to be exact.
Makes sense,
and they were typically heated by something called a kudlik, which is a small oil lamp, essentially seal oil or seal fat. That small kudlik heating the inside of the igloo along with the animal skins creates a pretty warm shelter. Next.
If you had asked me to draw an igloo, I'm glad you corrected my pronunciation there, I would have made like little bricks of ice. That's probably because that's how we see it in cartoons, and maybe sometimes games too, so it's nice to know that that was in fact incorrect. This guy's legit.
Question is from Nicole Appelian. Shelter is key to survival in the wilderness. If you're in a pinch, an old cedar stump can make a great shelter from the elements. What are some other possible natural shelters you may find in the wilderness? A free shelter is always the best shelter. Caves, rock overhangs, large boulder fields where you have fixed, immovable boulders, all of those can create a barrier from the wind or any of the elements. More importantly, it doesn't require you to make anything or to craft anything or cut anything down. If it's there and it's safe to be in there, that's a great shelter.
And then you can, if you have time, you can upgrade your abode into a log cabin. Oh, I bet this guy can make a killer log cabin.
Next question is from Willy Wonka the Fearful. When backpacking alone, how do you combat loneliness? Loneliness is definitely a factor. And I believe there's been some studies proving that about 3 months completely isolated and alone can lead to all sorts of mental issues.
That's interesting. I would say 1 month on social media, reading all of the political stuff and battles and toxic people around will achieve just that as well, but in a month instead of 3.
We are primates, and we typically like to stay together in small groups and small little bands, but to combat loneliness, you have to stay active. You have to stay busy. You always have to think about, how can I improve upon my current situation? If I have a shelter, or I have a fire, or I have a sustainable source of food, how can I make that better? Keeping your mind occupied will ultimately help you battle out some of that loneliness. Next question is from Tony Mohorovich. TV show, Vegetarian Survivalist. 10 vegetarians/vegans are dropped into the wilderness. Who will be the last plant-based eater to survive? Who will succumb to hunger for the flesh? That's an interesting TV show, to be honest with you. But here's a fun fact. I was a vegan for 1.5 years based on a dare. A buddy of mine dared me to only eat plant-based sort of materials for about 90 days. I said, sure, why not? But the one thing it taught me was the plants I could eat in the bush. And let me tell you, there's tons of them. Plants, berries, roots, you name it. There's a variety of food options out there. Are they as calorically high compared to eating a squirrel or a possum or some sort of deer. Absolutely not. But it will keep you alive. It will keep you fed. Next.
Maybe like legumes would help with that because of the protein intake. Because I imagine if you just eat plant, that would be one of the deficits, unless you insert something like legumes. Not an expert on nutrition, of course. I'm just speculating.
This question is from Brilliant Ratio 2412. What are the best animals to eat that are safest to consume in the wild with no parasites that you'd get?
Good question.
Not all animals have parasites. It's kind of a myth. There are certain animals that are scavengers or eat dead things, are more likely to have parasites and have different sort of bacteria on their flesh, in their flesh, or on their fur. You want to avoid those, but squirrels, rabbits, possum, elk, deer, moose, all those sort of things are very safe to eat. This is from History TV Canada. If you were a contestant on a loan and you can only bring one item with you, what item would you bring? Well, ironically enough, I was a contestant on a loan.
Of course.
Up in the Canadian Arctic, and I was afforded to bring 10 items. But if I could only bring one item, I would definitely bring an axe.
I would say a knife, but yeah,
big chopping
axe.
tool to fell trees, to build a shelter, to cut firewood, to make spears. All of that right there is essential with an axe. And this is
that's brilliant, in fact, because you bring the one tool that allows you to make all the rest of the stuff that you weren't able to bring. Genius.
From Reddit Ask. If you got lost hiking, what's your best survival advice? If you're ever lost when you're hiking, you hear a lot of people say you should stay in place. And I agree to that to a certain point. What if you're on the side of a cliff or you're hanging on the edge of a floodplain? The most important thing when you are lost is get to a safe location where you can find some form of shelter and then stay put. Once you're in that stay put situation, you need to start thinking about how I can signal for help. And how you signal for help is anything that's going to give you contrasting colors, movement, and anything that's extremely loud. So a whistle, maybe waving a jacket high over your head. The movement, the color, and the sound will ultimately allow a search and rescue, a rescue plane, any other additional hikers find you when you're lost in the bush. That's all the questions I have received from the internet. I hope you learned something.
Oh yeah.
And I'll see you in the bush.
He's the man. You're the man, sir. You are the man. So fantastic. Together with the Egyptologist episode, these are my two favorite so far. And I really, really liked it. So let me give it a like. And thank you very much, Noble Ones, for watching this, of course, with me. I hope that we all learned something. And if you ever end up in a forest alone, well, hopefully your chances of surviving have just improved a little bit. But thank you very much for watching. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.